Alrighty, fun fact, sweat is your sole crime because it's too hot, but from what I've been told, that's not why we named this show The Sweat. She's Jessie Coffield, I'm Emerson Lotzia. Joining us now is Adrian Peterson's #1 fan, that's Mr. Jeff Ulrich.
As well as Reed Fowler and Joe Holka of the Action Network app, which you can find right now on Android and iPhone. Guys, let's put a fantasy spin on some of the top NFL stories right now. Reed, Le'Veon's holdout continues in Pittsburgh, so do you expect to see more of the same from his backup, James Conner?
Sure. I mean, when you look at the Pittsburgh running back, I mean, we've seen RB1 production from Le'Veon Bell's backup, D'Angelo Williams, in 2016. He was the stud RB1. So if you look at the scheme that Pittsburgh does, you can really place, you have to be talented, obviously, to be in the NFL and to do well. And James Conner is that. You can place running back in this position. We talked about it on the Sweat for Sundays, that running back is a place where you can recoup. So when you look at James Conner and what they want to do in Pittsburgh, it's give him the ball, run the ball first, and then win on defense. And yeah, so I think if Le'Veon Bell still holds out, you have a good backup in James Conner. No one's there to steal touches from James Conner either. So he is the RB1 there.
Jeff, Lev Bell not showing up anytime soon. Do you think James Conner is going to continue to get those touches, and we'll see more of him playing the way he did in week 1?
Yeah, I mean, the touches seem to be a guaranteed thing at this point. I wish I could make some kind of regression argument here, but you look at the matchup. Kansas City Chiefs allowed the most fantasy points to the running back position in week 1. It was something absurd like 54, 58 DraftKings points. And when you think about it, that's between Austin Eckler and Melvin Gordon. James Conner is going to be in line to get all those points. And I'm not saying he's going to get 54 points next week, but the Kansas City offense is terrible. Or defense, excuse me, is terrible. The offense is really good. But James Conner is in a monster spot here because he's probably going to get all the touches again, and it's an even better opponent. So I can't even really make an argument here. He's in a really good spot.
Joe, similar production from James Conner in week 2. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if Bell was trying to prove that he's completely irreplaceable, I definitely don't think they think that after week 1 anymore. Kind of just echo a lot of the same things those guys have been saying. This defense is a great matchup for them, maybe even better than last week. I mean, what we saw from Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler, even in the passing game alone, is something that should be really appealing for people going back to the well with Conner. His price is still really reasonable as well. So, I mean, just the sample size we have alone of just Pittsburgh riding these backups, I think it's a pretty safe workload.
Oh, well, Jeff with the G, wide receiver Martavis Bryant is back with the Raiders 10 days after they released him. So what impact will he have on this offense? But let's keep in mind Adam Schefter reporting over the weekend, this kid's facing a year-long ban for his latest violation of the NFL substance abuse policy.
Yeah, the Martavis Bryant tag is, I just don't understand. I don't know why you trade for a player who's going to get suspended. It's just strange. But anyways, if he does see the field this week, I'm kind of in the camp where I think this might actually help the Raiders a little bit. They want to work Jordy Nelson a little bit on the outside, but he's getting up there in age. So Amari Cooper, they want to get involved in the middle of the field, but he's not doing much. I think Martavis Bryant could be a player who could win some one-on-one battles down the field for Derek Carr. Maybe not the most accurate thrower, Derek Carr, but again, you have a player, a really athletic guy like Martavis Bryant. That could help him in the long run. It could help this offense. I also think the Raiders didn't look that bad week 1. It's just that the Rams are so good. Mm-hmm. So I think Bryant coming in might actually help this offense in the long run. I don't think it's going to be a big deal this week against the Broncos because the Broncos have a good secondary, but long term, yeah, it might actually help them.
Joe, what do you think? A potential deep threat here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this was pretty big surprise. Wasn't as uncommon, I guess, as a lot of people think. I mean, it doesn't mean he's going to be there for the entire season. But yeah, I think in the short term, I don't really expect too much kind of from these Raiders receivers this week anyway. Like you said, against Denver, what we saw from Carr, maybe it was overacting a little bit to be extremely down on him. But I'm definitely more interested in going back to the well with a guy like Jared Cook, specifically because of the matchup. If Martavis sucks away some of the ownership away from Cook, I think that would be ideal.
Reed, Oakland sent a 3rd-round pick to Pittsburgh 4 months ago for this guy. So what do you think the impact he will have on this offense?
Oh, they're bringing the wrong guy back first. I mean, if you're just going to start bringing guys back, just pay Khalil Mack twice as much as he got offered in Chicago. Because look at that defense, right? They had no pass rush. And that was the whole thing. But getting back to Bryant, he's a boomer bust wide receiver 4. He takes the top off of defenses. And like Jeff and these guys were saying, and Joe, it opens up the middle of the field. So Jared Cook, if you want to work in Cooper in the slot, this is what it does for these guys. But at the same time, Bryant, in his best year in Pittsburgh, I believe in 2015, he was still only outside the top 50 in targets and outside the top 70, I believe, in catches. So this guy is your boomer bust. He has big game ability. We've seen him catch 6 balls for like 180 yards and a couple of touchdowns. But picking that game and when that is really tough. So I think, yeah, Jared Cook and these guys in the middle of the field, that opens up not so much Martavis Bryant as an independent value for the Raiders.
All right, guys, Carolina tight end Greg Olsen says he's going to rest his fractured foot for a few weeks and then play out the rest of the season. So who's in line for a bump in targets with him out, Joe? Keep in mind, he's been Cam Newton's go-to guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it's completely cut and dry. We do have rookie Ian Thomas, who's going to take over at tight end, obviously have an immediate opportunity. Obviously, really like what I saw from him in the preseason. I think he's got a ton of upside for a tight end. I also think that it's unlikely that he completely assumes Olsen's role immediately. So probably a bump in targets for McCaffrey and Funchess, but just this week specifically, Newton struggled in the past quite a bit against Atlanta. So not necessarily a slam dunk for either of those guys, but I do think that they're probably going to see a bump in targets, obviously.
Yeah, Jeff, maybe some more short passes to McCaffrey. What do you think?
I think this week especially, Christian McCaffrey could benefit. The matchup with Atlanta is really good from the running back perspective. They really struggle under Dan Quinn against guarding, the running back out of the backfield. So I like McCaffrey for that bump this week. Longer term, I think Funchess could see a few more red zone targets for sure. And Ian Thomas is a player. I mean, he's got some upside. It's a rookie tight end, so he's not someone you go out of your way to target. But if he sees a bump or a couple nice games in a row, wouldn't shock me at all if he ends up having like a fantasy impact at the end of the year. So more a player to keep your eye on. But McCaffrey this week is the player I'd really expect to see a bump.
Yeah, Reed, Ian Thomas, a 4th-round pick in April. You think he could have some good fantasy upside?
I mean, yes, in terms of like fulfilling 25% of what Olsen produced. I mean, like you guys were saying off the top, that's Cam's favorite spot to go to. You would think Funchess and some guys in the middle, right, would benefit because that's where they want to go. I think Christian McCaffrey does get a bump. DJ Moore obviously would get a bump, but the guy is Devin Funchess. I mean, he's a buy low candidate, I think, now, and if you're playing season long, potentially get him as long as Olsen's out. Olsen says he's going to try and miss a couple of weeks, but from Dr. Seelan Preck and other guys that talk about this type of injury, it's the same foot, and he could be out for 2 to 3 months. So when you have that of a disparity in terms of when you want to come back and when you could actually come back, you're going to look elsewhere. So I think Funchess is the guy that benefits in the short term, but don't sleep on DJ Moore. He's another guy that goes across the middle that they want to start to get more of a rapport with Cam Newton.
All right, guys, we're going to want you to put your thinking and creative caps on here because we are playing fill in the blank with you in about 15 minutes. But next, it's MLB Double Play with Steve and Garion.
Hey, I'm Brendan Glasheen with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. If I told you a Major League Baseball pitcher went 35-0 with an ERA of 0.00, what would you say? Wow, he's pretty damn great, right? Yeah? Well, David Price says, it wouldn't matter. That's because the Red Sox lefty admits the regular season means nothing for him, and he needs to win in October. These comments came to light when Price told Christopher Smith of Mass Live in Boston Tuesday he doesn't plan on opting out of the remaining 4 seasons of his 7-year contract for $217 million. Price begged the questions, why would I think about that? And leave to go to a lesser team? He's got a point. The Red Sox are going for an MLB leading win number 100 tonight, something they haven't done in 62 years. And what do you know, Price starts this evening against the Blue Jays, $9,700, 7th on a slate loaded with above-average arms. I just keep in mind, anytime Price opens his mouth prior to a big start, he sometimes stinks it up, discusses his hefty contract again. Teams eclipsing 100 wins, that's happening. And oh yeah, October is right around the corner. Sort of a big spot tonight for Mr. Price. Must say he is stepping up for the Red Sox with Chris Sale battling shoulder soreness. Price 5-0, 2.04 ERA in his last 9 starts. Consider Price tonight overall since he is the first ace you'll find under 10K.
Double your pleasure and fun. We're talking baseball with Steve Buchanan and Gary and Thorn, and it's time for MLB Double Play.
This is when we'll have you guys choose from the top 2 options at a trio of positions. Starting on the mound, take your pick, Steve. David Price and Steven Strasburg, a couple former aces regaining their form. Who are you going with?
Yeah, I mean, both are pretty close in price, but it's 100% David Price for me. I mean, Strasburg has just been way too dicey as of late. He's already faced the Phillies twice already with mixed results, averaging 11.4 DK fantasy points in those 2 starts. I mean, he's been hurt. Yes, we'll definitely give him that, but he hasn't reached 20 DK fantasy points since the beginning of June, which spanned 6 starts since then. Price has faced his Blue Jays club, averaging 19.6 DK fantasy points 3 times already this season. I mean, it's essentially, aside from a start against the Marlins, he has been absolutely fantastic in the second half. He's pitching like the pitcher they always thought he would be, but just, hasn't been that until now. He's got to go Price tonight.
Gary, and Price will cost you $200 more, but is the price right?
Ooh, yeah. Right. I can't disagree with Steve here. I mean, Strasburg, I don't want to say he's unplayable or anything. I think the fact that the Phillies have such a high strikeout rate against right-handed pitching, kind of corresponding with just we're now 4 or 5 starts clear of when Strasburg came back from the DL. The velocity uptick has been gradual. It's been small, but it's getting there. But Price, since about mid-July, has a 2.41 FIP. He's striking out almost 27% of the batters he's facing. And as Steve talked about, if you take out that Marlins start, which, to even just be fair to Price, he might have gotten better in that start. He had to leave it due to injury. His last 4 starts that he's gotten to leave on his own accord, he's averaging 30.8 DK points. And between the Red Sox at home, much higher win expectancy than the Nationals on the road. So you have to go with Price here.
All right, Garion, I like your haircut. And 2 of the top 3 highest priced first basemen, Matt Olson, Anthony Rizzo, both coming off big old fat zeros in their last game. So take your pick.
This one's kind of weird. I'm not even really necessarily targeting either of these guys. I mean, they are in opposite-handedness matchups, which generally speaking is a good thing, but both these pitchers tend to have reverse splits. Chase Anderson struggles with right-handed bats, and Andrew Cashner struggles with right-handed bats as well. But Cashner is like a special kind of awful since the start of August. You go back through his last 4 starts, he's given up as many home runs as batters he's struck out. That's not a stat. That's not a thing that I should be able to say about a major league pitcher, which Andrew Cashner really isn't. So just give me the guy who's going up against Cashner. I'll take Olson.
Steve, you didn't look too hot with Garion's answer there.
I'm always hot, but I mean, that's besides the point. I mean, this one's not even
facts
close
only here, people.
You got it, baby. I mean, this one's not even close for me. I think it absolutely has to be Olson. I mean, while Chase Anderson does give up a lot of home runs, he's been pretty good against lefties overall. I mean, his numbers don't jump out at you as bad. He just really gets himself into trouble with some of the walks sometimes. But then we have Andrew Trashner, who I like to call, was a 355 WOBA against lefties, 14 of his 24 home runs allowed on this season. And then the game takes place at Camden Yards. I mean, you have to like it a lot more there. I think Olson is definitely in a good bounce-back spot. I think the A's overall are going to be a popular pick against Andrew Cashner, so absolutely, I think it's definitely going to be Olson.
I will say this, both of you guys have fantastic value plays listed on the DraftKings Playbook right now, so everyone get online and check that out after the show, which it might be too late.
Nice plug, Emerson. And the only 2 players in the American League with 40-plus home runs and at least 100 RBI, Chris Davis out in Oakland or Boston's J.D. Martinez. Who would you roster, Steve?
I wonder who he's going to go with.
All right, calm down, calm down. I mean, look, Martinez has actually been fairly quiet as of late, if you call it that. I mean, it's been a small sample size in September, but he's only got a 309 WOBA with a 0.97 isolated power. Davis has been the better one in that same time span. 372 WOBA with a 273 isolated power. Honestly, they're both in great spots tonight, but you have to do side with Martinez, so yeah, I guess you guys are right. I mean, look, the Red Sox offense just continues to pour it on night in, night out. They're just absolutely ridiculous when they're at Fenway Park. Their numbers are absolutely off the chart. They're in the top 4 in almost every offensive category at Fenway Park, so you just got to go with the hot hand there. I'm going to go with Martinez.
Gary, and I see you nodding. Do you agree?
I agree that Martinez is in a great spot. I just feel like Davis is in a better spot. I mean, Trashner, as you so eloquently dubbed him, is tonight. I mean, 409 WOBA to right-handed bats since the start of August. I just can't ignore that kind of split number with a guy with as much power as Chris Davis. I mean, Aaron Sanchez has not pitched well this season. No one's going to argue that he has, but .041 home runs per 9 away from Rogers Center to right-handed bats so far this season. We all know the book on him. He struggles with lefties, not righties. I don't want to overstate that Martinez is probably going to have 2, maybe 3 plate appearances against a really bad Blue Jays bullpen, so that could make up for the discrepancies in the starting nod, but I think Davis is just in a better spot.
All right, that'll do it for now, gentlemen. We will get Garian's 3 biggest fades of the night in just a moment. Fill in the blank with the NFL dudes is coming your way after Adam Levitan delivers the goods from his Daily Fantasy Edge podcast.
Shouldn't be grinding head-to-heads, shouldn't be grinding cash games anyways. You should just treat DFS as fun, I think, play tournaments, try to bink something, etc. But if you want to grind the head-to-head streets, if you're determined to, here are a few tips. First of all, post them. Don't scoop. I think it's always better to post them. The people that are posting, if you go scoop the people that are posting, you're likely to run into far tougher competition. Use the head-to-head blockers. So you post. I'm not even sure a lot of people are aware this exists on DraftKings. So this feature on DraftKings that they've expanded, you can go to your account information, go to preferences, and then there's a spot where you can block head-to-head games from certain people. So let's say every time you post a game, I don't know, Empire Maker or somebody like that is taking your game. Just go in there and block him. You know, and you can do this for 10 people. I honestly don't think there's more than 10 really good people going around scooping up games. I really don't. So block them, okay? That's actually plan B. For me, plan A is play them and beat them. And then they'll stop taking your games. But anyways, if you don't want to do that, use the head-to-head blocker. And then the third tip, cancel your not picked up head-to-heads before lock. So if you don't sell head-to-heads and the slate locks, which is actually pretty rare in NFL, but you'll get auto match with somebody who also posted. Don't want that to happen. So go ahead and cancel your not picked up head-to-heads before lock. I hope that makes sense. You know, like I'm not going to lie about my win rates and stuff like that. Like it's crazy. And I think there's some strat that hopefully I just described for people who, if you have similar scores and a lower win rate, you can use. And also, you know, sample size is a big thing. You know, I played 204 head-to-heads, which isn't even that many. You could certainly run hot and run bad in terms of opponent distribution within 200. But some people are playing like 20 and being like, Adam, I only won 30% of my head-to-heads and I scored 210 points. Yeah, well, if you only play 20, there's going to be a lot of randomness.
Welcome back to my best friends, Reed Fowler, Jeff Ulrich of DK Live, and Action Network's Joe Holka, which, if you don't know, now you know. The Action Network app is available on iPhones and Android.
Wow, that's cool. We want you fellas to play fill in the blank with us. Complete these statements that we'll be saying on Monday. Reed, pay attention, listen closely. Aaron Rodgers blank against the Minnesota Vikings. Please fill in that blank.
Am I going first here?
Yeah, Reed.
Okay, nice. That's strange.
You didn't listen.
Wow.
My gosh.
Wow.
Already terrible.
God,
This is pathetic, dude.
You have the listening comprehension
Aaron
of a first
Rodgers
grader.
Survived this week against the Vikings, and I think this applies to both scenarios, if he plays or if he doesn't. Obviously, if he doesn't, he's on the sideline wearing a hat, and he's not Deshaun Kaiser, and he's not getting absolutely obliterated by the Minnesota Vikings. And even if he's in, you got to think that they're going to keep him outside of scenarios where he's running the ball or potentially could get hurt. Now it's football. You always have the possibility of getting hurt, but you can see a lot of quick passes, I think, coming out of Aaron Rodgers. So Jamal Williams, Jimmy Graham are in good spots. If you look at what happened to Minnesota, George Kittle last week did pretty well against Minnesota's pass defense. Now, is that going to be a regular occurrence? Probably not. But if you like to think of game scheme and where this could potentially go if Aaron Rodgers is in, I think it's those short passes. So if he plays, I think he'll survive against the Vikings.
Jeff, Aaron Rodgers blank against the Minnesota Vikings.
Aaron Rodgers went nuts against the Minnesota Vikings. Why is everyone worried about his knee? He just scored 3 touchdowns in the second half right after the knee injury occurred. Now he's got a week to rest. He smokes the Minnesota Vikings every year. They're playing at Lambeau. It's nice conditions. Oh, by the way, the Vikings secondary is a little bit banged up too. I think this is a great spot for him. Randall Cobb's got a good matchup. Devontae Adams is on the injury report, something to keep an eye on, but I don't think it's major. Jimmy Graham's set for a bounce back. The Vikings were terrible against the tight ends last week. I think Aaron Rodgers has a big week. I'm not that afraid of him, to be quite honest here.
Be careful of those Lambeau leaps. Joe, Aaron Rodgers blank against the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way here. I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers struggled against the Minnesota Vikings. I just think this defense is the real deal. I mean, they pressure better than almost any team in the league. They have talent at every level. They have Sheldon Richardson on the interior. They have Anthony Barr bringing pressure. And then obviously Xavier Rhodes is banged up. But I still think that there's other guys in the secondary that can kind of pick up the slack. I don't think it's going to be long before we're talking about them in the same breath as the Jacksonville Jaguars, to be completely honest. So if Rodgers is this far from 100% and kind of struggles to remain mobile, there's not many teams in the league right now that I think I'd be more scared to expose that to.
Well, Joe, Jeff didn't sound too concerned about some of the injuries there in the secondary. Clearly it doesn't.
Oh, yeah, look at Joe's hat, too. I think he's a Minnesota fan there.
From Arizona, but I do live in Minnesota now.
There we go.
There we go. We finally got it out of you. Jeff, after that game against Miami, it looks like the Jets' defense is blank. The same Jets' defense that had 5 interceptions against the Lions? Wow.
I mean, I think the Jets' defense is going to be solid this year. I mean, they added some people in the secondary. So I'll go with, looks like the Jets' defense is going to be a solid team. I mean, I'm not expecting anything crazy here. I mean, I don't think they're going to repeat the 10 interception performance against Matthew Stafford, because Matthew Stafford was basically just throwing the ball wherever he wanted. There was also some rumors that the Jets knew which plays were coming, so make of that what you will. But they do have a solid defense. Like I said, they added Trumaine Johnson in the back in the secondary. Now he was a little bit injured, so look out for that. If they do go into this week a little bit banged up, could be a spot for Ryan Tannehill to put up some points. But I think this is a solid unit, and I think people will have that same conclusion after this week.
Reed, after that game against Miami, it looks like the Jets' defense is blank.
I think it's back at par. Trying to bring that golf terminology back, with the Tour Championship. But I think these guys, look, they've matched 50% of their takeaways from last year. And yes, they're much improved. Like Jeff was saying, they have some guys that are there. Buster Screen got a little banged up as well. He's an important coverage guy for the Jets. But you have a whole preseason to plan. And like Jeff was saying, Darren Leaf, who got 2 of those 5 interceptions, knew those calls, knew the audibles at the line. So it's just a matter of being in the right place. And clearly they were. So I do think they come back down. Miami should stick to the run. The implied game total is around 44. So, again, not too high. But, yeah, I think they come back to par just a little bit, where we don't see, obviously, 5 interceptions. But they're still going to be a strong defense.
So you're thinking last week was more of the Detroit
offense? Jeff
was
saying, I mean, Stafford looked like he was a rookie throwing 5 picks. I mean, he was just slinging it. After he threw probably his third, he was just like, whatever, let's just try and get something going. I don't think that keeps on happening with Stafford. Therefore, I don't think the Jets are going to, be in the same discussion as a Minnesota, as a Jacksonville. They're still the Jets.
Joe, I see you nodding your head there, so go ahead and fill in the blank, buddy. After that game against Miami, it looks like the Jets' defense is blank.
Yeah, so I'm definitely further on Reed's side here. I'm just going to go a little bit further and say that after that game against Miami, it looks like the Jets' defense is still relevant. I just think this team's seriously lacking off the edge, and, pressure is the name of the game in fantasy. We want sacks, we want turnovers. Yes, I get it. They had 5 interceptions. They might be greatly improved in the secondary, but I still think that this is just a prime example of people overreacting in a big week 1 kind of shift in narrative. And in order to keep that rolling, they need to be able to pressure a little bit better. I just don't see them being able to sustain that if they're not going to generate a ton of sacks and pressure.
Joe calling it a 1-week fluke. Okay.
All right, guys. Man, I really should have played blank. He went off this week. Joe, please fill in that blank.
Yeah, Ben Roethlisberger. I think, to be fair, I think just in general, people kind of like to go with the narrative how he just doesn't do well on the road. We do know that, obviously. But to be fair, was pretty bad weather and conditions, some winds that were 20-plus miles per hour, heavy rain. Just in general, I'm not reading too much into that performance in week one. I think in this matchup against the Chiefs, who were number 30 overall in defensive DVOA against the pass last year, I'm just a team that just let Philip Rivers go absolutely insane. I think that Roethlisberger is a guy that you could be looking to pay up for.
Jeff, man, I really should have played blank. He went off this week.
I'm going to go with I love your enthusiasm, Jessie. I'm going to go with Brandon Cooks. It's a bit of an off-the-wall pick, but I think most people are just going to say, I got to plug Todd Gurley in because the Rams are like 14-point favorites. But Brandon Cooks might be in a good matchup here. And I love the way the Rams are getting him in. I think he might go off in this game. The Cardinals look like they're going to be a terrible team, so Brandon Cooks might be the shock play of week 2.
Reed, man, I really should have played blank. He went off this week.
Hey, you should be at a game show. This is fantastic. Devin Funchess is my guy. He's at 4,700. We just talked about off the top. You look at those targets that are going to be void of with Greg Olsen being out. I think he's in a prime slot. Look at Atlanta's defense, too. They really took a hurt on Thursday, losing Deion Jones and Keanu Neal, both their best coverage defenders and really the leaders and the cornerstone of that defense. They're in a world of hurt, so I think Devin Funchess, and that game could potentially get out of hand for Atlanta, and Carolina scoring quite a bit. So I think Devin Funchess is a guy that we should be playing.
Wonderful. Listen, your enthusiasm was so great during that segment. Do you want to read the tease?
Yeah,
here?
I'll go ahead.
All right,
Thanks, NFL crew. We've got the MLB crew up next. First, let's hear from Pat Mayo on where Ajayi stacks up in his power rankings.
A lot of victory laps on Twitter week 1 about how people are going to do for the season. I told you
the
so.
The Ajayi one was the most fun.
Well, that one's okay. Do you want to?
He's properly ranked.
He needs to score a touchdown to be viable.
Here's the thing. If you're playing in a season-long format, probably try and sell him. That would be my advice. But at the same time, if you have him and they're going into a great matchup, he's a top 20 running back.
All right, just very quick.
I completely and utterly disagree.
Oh, really?
I think Jay Ajayi, again, he is appropriately ranked in the top 20, but here's the thing. You drafted him as an RB2. He's an ideal RB2 because literally you will get weeks like this where he pops off as a top 5 running back. He is the lead running back in a great offense, and all the advanced metrics that we got in terms of next-gen stats tell me that this guy was an extremely elusive player for the Philadelphia Eagles last year. So he's a lead back in a great offense. I don't know why we continue to discount this guy as if he doesn't have at least the ingredients to be a top 10 running back at season's close. So I think that's within the range of possibilities. And yet, despite that, we've drafted him as an RB2. I love that. I love the fact that he's my second RB and still has top 10 potential. I would never move that in a million years.
I think he's also got RB 37, RB 40 potential every other week.
Oh, no way.
That's the thing.
It's the Royce Freeman conundrum that we just talked about.
I do not dispute anything you just said in the sense that he's a very talented running back. That offensive line, when healthy, is fantastic. That offense, when also healthy in general, projects to be one of the best in the NFL. We're talking about a team that just led the NFL in points per game, but Doug Peterson just had his coaching philosophy validated with a Super Bowl ring, and that coaching philosophy is the correct philosophy in 2018. Use multiple running backs, keep fresh legs in there, get guys with various skill sets. I mean, before Jay Ajayi got his second touch of the game, we saw all 4 Eagle running backs on the field. He only got 40% of the share load with Darren Sproles.
He played a similar amount of snaps as Darren Sproles, who was
and
the one who was
on both his red zone carries. He only had 2.
And Darren Sproles was actually on Ajayi's second touchdown. It was after Darren Sproles got the first red zone touch. And James Coe was taken off by airplane to go.
Open the gates of hell.
Yeah, I mean, he's furious about this Jay Ajayi thing. No, I'm with you, Gary, and that's why I rank him. I'll probably just rank him at 20 every week. Some weeks he's going to be really good. Yeah. Some weeks he's going to be really bad. But
he's going to average out to RB20.
Yeah, and that's not a player that I love, and I think that I'm with you. But Coe, you think that he could sustain himself as a potentially high-end number 2 running back?
Yeah, no doubt about it to me. Again, you talk about mixing in guys. Look, he got 1 snap in the first quarter. Whether that was injury or whether that was, hey, we're just trying to keep this guy, I don't know. But the bottom line was the last 3 quarters, he absolutely dominated the snaps. He dominated the touches. And to me, I think, and if you listen to Peterson talk as well, I think he realizes Jay Ajayi is my best running back. I've got to get this guy more involved. And I like Corey Clement. I like, Darren Sproles. But
Darren Sproles at this point in his career, what is he, like 47 years old? He's coming off of like 17 season-ending surgeries. It's like he has clearly lost a step. He's not the same Darren Sproles that we have come to know and love. Ajayi, to me, again, is that explosive running back that this offense, they sorely need explosive players because right now they don't have that many of them. And Ajayi is one of the few guys that they have.
I just think we've seen time and time again. I mean, this is the 33rd regular season game that Doug Peterson has been the head coach of the Eagles, and twice has a running back exceeded 20 carries. And both those guys, for some reason, were Ryan Matthews. And that was very early on in his tenure. And even going back to last year, like, you know, Ajayi just scored 2 touchdowns. We talk about how he probably needs to score a touchdown to be a top 10 running back because he's just not going to have the volume to do it. We're coming off a season where the NFL leader in rushing touchdowns was 13. It was Todd Gurley with 13. We're not talking about Sean Alexander. We're not talking about LT 10 years ago scoring 20, 22, 28 touchdowns in a season.
I mean, you could use that argument both for and against him, too.
But I'm just saying, if he needs touchdowns, this is not the NFL where workhorse running backs score a touchdown every week because they're getting 20 carries. I just don't think it's a place where he's set to thrive. And again, it's not against him. I just hate the situation he's in.
All right, the world is filled with hate, so let's throw some fuel onto that fire. It's time for Thorn in My Side.
So Garion gives us 3 players he hates tonight, his top fades of the evening, and Steve will do his best to prove our Canadian friend wrong. Who's your first Thorn, Garion?
I don't know. I think I like Steve's segment intro better, but okay. Let's throw some hate.
Now to America's hat. Let's throw it to America's hat. Take it away, Garion.
We'll spice yours up a little bit.
Let's start with Christian Yelich, who perfectly fine hitter. He's on absolute fire over the past month and a half or so, but I just don't like this spot against Kyle Hendricks. Kyle Hendricks has been fantastic for about 7 weeks now, going back actually to July 29th. Just a 2.63 FIP overall in that span, and specifically against left-handed bats, that number drops below 1, 0.96 FIP to lefties. They just really haven't been able to do anything with him. No one has, really. I mean, the strikeout rate is even up for Kyle Hendricks. It's up around 24% over that 7-week span, which is not great in the grand scheme of things. He's not Chris Sale or anything, but for a guy who was striking out like 15% of dudes just a couple months back, that's fantastic. And really, at the end of the day, the whole reason I'm not using Yelich is I've just got Kyle Hendricks everywhere. I don't trust any of the pitchers below 8K on this slate. So if I'm going to be using that much Hendricks, I'm not going to have any Brewers.
Steve, I could hear you just clearing your throat the entire time that Garion was talking. So go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, sorry, I just had tacos. I think it was still a little bit there.
And
speaking of a good intro, first, Garion, you need to have a segment that's worth a good intro. So keep working on that. We'll get there.
Man, he's starting to treat you like Julian, dude.
Oh, I treat everybody like this. Don't worry about it.
No.
Anyways, but as far as Yelich, I can get behind this one. I'm actually a big fan of Hendricks tier tonight myself. I mean, like you said, Yelich has been hitting very well this season, averaging 9.7 DK fantasy points over his last 10 games. But Hendricks has been like sneaky good lately, as Garion was saying. I mean, he's not getting the amount of love that he should be for someone that's really essentially had a really impressive post-All-Star break season so far. I mean, second half, 309 WOBA with a 2.74 FIP, and he's cheap. It's only 8,200, I think it is offhand. I mean, that's someone you definitely want to roster tonight. Like Garion said, there's just not a lot of the value pitchers tonight that you can trust. So Hendricks has got to be up there as someone you definitely want to look for.
Okay, all right. Garion, what about your second Thorn? Oh, Steve, golf clap. Steve, okay. Garion, hit us with that second Thorn.
Giancarlo Stanton, not going to be a guy I'm using any of tonight. It's interesting. Jake Odorizzi, one of my least favorite pitchers in baseball. I love stacking Jake. So fly ball oriented. The target field time and time again keeps proving that it plays much better to left-handed bats than right-handed bats. I mean, again, for some perspective here, Odorizzi's given up 69 home runs the last 3 seasons, the Rob Gronkowski special.
Nice.
He's still only giving up 0.47 home runs at home to right-handed bats so far this season. Target field just cures what ails you if a right-hander is at the dish. And then there's the fact of the matter that Odorizzi is a very heavy slider pitcher against right-handed batters, 23.1% usage on that pitch. And according to Fangraphs, The worst hitter in the American League against sliders this season has been Giancarlo Stanton, hitting just 185 with a 125 isolated power off of right-handed sliders so far this season. So I just don't like anything about this spot.
Steve, you look like you were nodding in agreement there.
I mean, this is what the Yankees get. They pay all this stuff against Giancarlo Stanton, and guess what? Come playoff time, he ain't hitting. Big surprise. Oh, he's going to make a great postseason impression there. Look, this is what happens with him. He just completely falls off the face of the earth all of a sudden, and you can't even remember why you gave up all those prospects for this guy. I mean, he hasn't hit a home run since August 30th, and he's just hit 10 since the All-Star break. And now he's priced at $4,800 tonight. Is anybody watching what he's doing or not doing at the plate? He's doing absolutely nothing. Why would anybody pay $4,800 for Stanton tonight? Sure, he can go out and hit a home run, but at this point, he can't hit a beach ball, for Christ's sake. He is just not getting it done right now. Stanton.
Boo! All right, Stanton, we can all agree on that. Give us your final Thorn Garion.
Well, I guess I teed up the Red Sox fan for that one. I'm also teeing Steve up for this one. Big BBP battle tonight. I'm not touching DJ LeMahieu against Patrick Corbin. I just have too much respect for Patrick Corbin right now. You go back to the middle of June, this guy's got a sub 1.7 FIP. He's striking out over 30% of batters, and his 241 WOBA against right-handed bats so far this season is the lowest of any left-handed pitcher in baseball. In fact, he's tied with Chris Sale. That's the kind of pitcher we have to start talking about Patrick Corbin in the likes of. I know LeMahieu's BVP numbers are fantastic. I really just wanted to pick Nolan Arenado here because the team came out and said he wasn't in fact 100%. He was what, Steve? He was injured, but I wanted to have this BVP discussion with you. So no LeMahieu in my lineups either.
So was he right, Steve? Did he really tee you up for this one?
Well, first of all, the BVP is alive and well for this one. 16 for 43 against Corbin, 4 home runs and a double. But look, LeMahieu's been having like a really odd season. I mean, he's been hitting for more power lately, but I'm just not loving this matchup against Corbin. I mean, Corbin has just been getting it done on the mound lately. He hasn't scored less than 21 DK fantasy points since July 28th. I mean, that's almost a 2-month span we're talking about here, and he's just been absolutely phenomenal on the mound. And look, Coors Field has been pretty much a dud over the past 2 months, it feels like. The under is just getting pounded, and it keeps coming through. The runs aren't coming through at Coors Field, especially when they're facing lefties. That's supposed to be their big matchup. Them that just haven't been getting it done lately. LeMahieu's just too expensive for this spot. So congratulations, Garen. You get a clean sweep here, but your segment is still average at best.
Where is Pierce Dietrich when you need him? Steve talking smack against his favorite field, Coors Field. Come on, man, you can't do that.
We don't really like Pierce. That's why he's not here anymore.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, I hold on a second. Yeah, producers can confirm that. All right, thanks, dudes. Next time we see you guys, it'll be Steve's turn to throw down the hammer. NFL over-under is coming at you right after this.
I'm Brendan Glasheen with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. A new era begins at quarterback in Buffalo. ESPN's Chris Mortensen first to report the Bills will start Josh Allen this Sunday in the team's home opener against the Chargers. Head coach Sean McDermott confirmed this morning, saying it's the right move for our team. Not all that surprising after Nathan Peterman's dumpster fire performance, 5 of 18, 24 yards and 2 picks against the Ravens. The Bills failed to gain a first down in the first half, 33 total offensive yards in half one, the team's fewest in any game since 2003. Yikes, they needed a change. There's zero pressure on Allen, priced at $4,600, cheapest among first-team QBs in Week 2. He can be encouraged by the Chargers, who were weak in the pass defense. Chiefs second-year quarterback Patrick Mahomes lit up LA last week, 256 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Buffalo may have seen what its AFC counterpart did against Detroit on Monday night, the Jets. If Allen can replicate just a smidge of what Sam Darnold did, that's a win for the Bills. Good luck, Rook.
All right, time to play a little game we and everyone else on the planet likes to call over-under. It's very creative and very simple because Reed is part of our NFL panel, and we've got to keep our games at around a 7 second grade level?
Right? Yeah, he has a second grader's listening comprehension.
Yeah, he's the guy trying to put
level.
like the square in the circle.
Round
like,
hole.
You can't do
Square
it.
peg. Moving on. Anyway, guys, we have Reed, like you mentioned. We also have Joe Holka of the Action Network. So, Reed, the Bills will start rookie Josh Allen at quarterback against San Diego this weekend. Over under 20 fantasy points.
Under by a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you would think that McDermott would give Peterman this moment and then bench him, right?
That would have been phenomenal.
But not, right? I mean, look, Peter, I don't even know who's starting. I mean, Josh Allen, yeah, he's the second rookie that should be starting, right? And we potentially could see a third, and we'll get to that later on in this segment coming up. But yeah, I mean, look at this Chargers defense. Kansas City's offense is really good. They're really explosive. So I wouldn't put anything on that Kansas City game. I think Joey Bosa, they're feeling a little bit with that in terms of not getting pressure on the quarterback. But again, Mahomes is a mobile quarterback. He has a quick release, and so you're not going to get to him as quickly as you're going to get to a guy like Josh Allen. You see the long form that he throws with, the inability to make decisions. I would suggest that the Chargers would be one of the best defenses to stream, and we could see Buffalo. Again, it's week 1, so it remains to be seen, but we could see just stream your defenses against Buffalo this season.
Joe, what do you think over under 20 fantasy points?
Yeah, I'm going under as well. I agree with pretty much everything that Reed said. Definitely keep an eye on Joey Bosa's injury, but since Nathan Peterman's not going to be in, we are going to see Allen completed only 40% of his attempts, some sacked 3 times in week 1. Over in our models, over at Fantasy Labs, we have the Chargers defense tied for the most projected sacks on the main slate. He didn't play a ton in the preseason, but Allen only completed 28.6% of his passes while under pressure in the preseason. So, yeah, 20 points, a little egregious for me. I think the Chargers defense is looking like the early chalk this week.
Reed, over under 3.5 interceptions in the first half for Josh Allen. God. Hey, remember, Peterman threw 5 in the first half against the Chargers last time these two teams faced off.
I'm going to say under.
You're going to go under? Wow.
I think you see LaShawn McCoy get quite a few touches. And, again, we've seen LaShawn McCoy have soft tissue injuries as well. I mean, this guy, if he's being used quite a bit, wouldn't be surprised if Ivory and some of these guys do come in. Look, who else are you going to throw to? Charles Clay, Kelvin Benjamin, these guys aren't, they're not quick off the hop. So when you have a strong defense, even safeties like Derwin James coming down to potentially fill that box with 8 guys, Peterman, I mean, again, Josh Allen is going to have trouble. Peterman, Josh Allen, whoever's out there is going to have trouble.
Joe, I know you want to take the over here, 3.5 interceptions for Josh Allen in the first half.
I'll take the under in the first half, but I would not be surprised if over the course of the entire game, or even in the second half. If you want to give me the second half, I'll take over the second half when game script's a little bit more out of control and he's going to be passing pretty much the whole game. Good point with McCoy. I mean, he really doesn't have a lot of weapons outside of that. But yeah, if you give me the second half of that, I'll definitely take the over on 3 interceptions.
The good news,
the chances too, we see Peterman again in this game. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility too, right? I mean.
Yeah, the good news is if you're a Bills fan, at least you get to see your defense on NFL Red Zone all day. Reed, last weekend, Washington's Adrian Peterson hopped in the DeLorean, cranked the flux capacitor to 1.21 gigawatts, blazing a fiery trail of Back to the Future. 166 total yards and a score, over under 15 fantasy points for all day against the Colts.
Was Back to the Future a movie when you were young, Emerson?
No, actually it was not.
Yeah, I'm going to go over here, and that was very enthusiastic. You're learning. Jessie is here, and you're getting very closer. But no, this is over here. Adrian Peterson is game script, if there is ever a game script type of running back. And I think this game is going to be closer than the one we saw in Arizona. Andrew Luck is not going to be, again, slinging it. He's probably going to be throwing short to Ebron and Doyle and some of these guys. And Adrian Peterson, for the first 3 quarters, is going to be the guy that you want. Chris Thompson's going to get his because he's too good of a talent not to play. But Adrian Peterson should be in line for another big volume because he is a volume guy. If they get out of if the Colts for some reason get in front of this game and that defense doesn't give up what they did last week, then they could go to Chris Thompson earlier. I don't think it's going to happen, so I do think that he goes over here.
Yeah, Chris Thompson, more that passing down guy. Interesting, though, right, that Jeff's internet just stopped working the segment ahead of when we were going to talk about Adrian Peterson, who he absolutely hates talking about on the show.
Suspicious.
Joe, over or under 15 fantasy points for Adrian Peterson against the Colts?
Yeah, I mean, it is close. It's obviously a really good matchup. I'm going to go under, though. I just really don't think he has enough left to justify, like, even his price at 5,500, which this spike in volume, like, they should be ahead. Like, it should make sense. I just, like, don't think there's enough upside to go there with Peterson. I'm going to do everything I can not to go there. I actually charted him in my rushing expectation methodology and finished in the 10th percentile as far as adjusting for his offensive line last year for the Cardinals as far as his efficiency. So that's pretty pathetic. That sample size goes all the way back to the year 2008. So he had a historically bad season last year in terms of efficiency. So I get that the volume's going to be there, but I just don't think that there is going to be a ton of upside. So I'll take the under on 15 points, even though I do think it'll be close.
All right, let's go to one of Peterson's former teammates, Larry Fitzgerald. Joe, thinking over or under 15 fantasy points for the Cardinals wide receiver?
Yeah, this pains me. I do love Larry Fitz, but I'm going to go under. I honestly think 15 points is probably closer to the ceiling in this game against the Rams defense. They definitely showed in the second half of that last game that they could be every bit as elite as we thought they would be. Fitzgerald's 10 targets led the team, but most of his production came in the second half with Arizona trailing last week. Sam Bradford looked terrible. I mean, I get the target potential should make him like a decent wide receiver 2 or so in most weeks. I just don't think that the Arizona offense is really going to produce enough touchdowns to really have Fitzgerald really have that high of a ceiling in fantasy. So I think the biggest concern is his overall touchdown equity for sure.
I saw you nodding, Reed, over under 15 fantasy points.
Yeah, I mean, the ageless wonder that is Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, he's fantastic. And this is what kind of scared me at the beginning of the season, if you're looking at season long or just in general, at his price tag of 6,000 is this team is just terrible. I mean, if you look at their defense, they can't get off the field. And when you look at their quarterback, Sam Bradford is built like glass. And so when you look at this, this has nothing to do with Larry Fitzgerald as a talent. This has everything to do with the talent on the defensive line and the defense of the Rams. I mean, they're going to be pressuring this guy quite a bit. And what does Bradford do? He does go to the slot quite a bit, but if he's going to be rushed and have to throw the ball within a second or two to save his life, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Rosen comes in this game if Bradford gets dinged up and we see the third starter come week 3, the third rookie QB starting in Arizona, because Bradford potentially could get hurt against this very, very aggressive Rams defense. So 15 points is, I think, a little high. So I'm going to say under here, but not based off his talent and his targets, more so that defense is really good.
Yeah, Sam Bradford is Samuel L. Jackson in the movie Unbreakable. He is Mr. Glass. Reed, Jared Cook caught 9 balls for 180 yards against the Rams because Amari Cooper forgot how to play football. But thinking over or under 10 fantasy points this week on the road at Denver.
I want to say over. I mean, look at Denver, what they did to Will Dissly. I mean, who knew who that guy was before last week? I mean, most of us in the industry do know who that guy is, but not the common person, right? So you look at Denver, 4th most PPR points given up, or points per reception given up to opposing tight ends, Jared Cook, slates. And we talked about it on top of the show. Like, Jared Cook and the Raiders wanted to attack the middle of the field. Martavis Bryant comes back. Yes, it opens up the middle of the field. And Denver doesn't have good cover linebackers. They have good corners, and their safeties are, you know, decent, but obviously losing Aqib Talib and losing some of their key guys. And smaller linebackers, too. I don't think you can cover the tight end. So 4th most given up last year. I think Jared Cook does go over that.
Joe, the Raiders stayed away from the Rams corner duo, focusing on Cook, but we have been fooled by Cook before. Over or under 10 fantasy points for this guy?
Yeah, I think it's over. We talked about him earlier when we were talking about Martavis Bryant. Cook's probably the only guy for the Raiders I'm really going after in this game, and for a lot of the same reasons that Reed was talking about. Obviously, they just allowed a 4th-round rookie tight end to score 16.5 fantasy points on them last week. Cook absolutely destroyed the Rams for 180 yards. I still think he's one of the top streaming options, one of the top guys in his price range for sure. Derek Carr throws to his tight end on 20.8% of his throws over the past year, which is well above average. So I definitely think that Cook's probably the only guy you want to touch in this passing game.
All right, I have a quick follow-up here, guys. I don't know if you heard, but Stephon Diggs spent $15,000 on a diamond-encrusted Starbucks necklace. So I want to ask you, Reed, yeah, you should read the internet sometime, buddy. I want to ask you over, under $31 a week that Jeff spends on Tim Hortons coffee.
Oh, over. That guy is always on edge. He's the angriest Canadian I've ever met in my entire life. So, yeah, I'm going to say way over on this. And, Jeff, I hope you're listening. Adrian Peterson is the best running back that you obviously don't like.
All right, Reed, Jeff told you to shut up one time, and you just
Always.
can't
That's
get
like his
over
hello
it.
to me.
Hey, Joe.
Can't get over it.
Joe, do you want to take a guess? You think Jeff spends more or less than $31 a week on Tim Hortons coffee up there in Canada?
I hope it's over because Tim Hortons is absolutely fantastic. I've been it for 3 years, so I'm kind of on his side with that. I hope it's over for his sake.
Yeah.
Joe, you've lived everywhere.
Married to a woman who is from Buffalo. I can confirm Tim Hortons is delicious.
You're married.
And feel free to sponsor our show, Tim Hortons, if you're watching.
We love Tim Hortons. Anyway, have a great night, guys. Thank you. We will definitely miss you. One more block of baseball to go, and Steve is definitely ready to punch Garion in the face.
Time for your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. I'm Brendan Glasheen. It's Foles gold, not fool's gold. Eagles head coach Doug Peterson said Wednesday, Nick Foles, the starting quarterback for Week 2 at the Bucs. Eagles insider Dave Sparano first with the news. Spadaro followed up with another note from Peterson on Carson Wentz. He's doing great, but hasn't cleared for contact. Still doing 11-on-11 work, trending in the right direction. Sounds like the Super Bowl 52 savior Foles going to have to be the guy for a while. He and the Birds struggled to move the football last Thursday versus the Falcons. 232 yards, and Foles averaged a lowly 3.4 yards per attempt. With that said, Foles is down from 5,900 in Week 1 to 5,700 in Week 2 against the Buccaneers. Salary ranks 19th among starting quarterbacks. Tampa Bay nowhere near as solid as Atlanta defensively, so based on the matchup, plus likely slight ownership, Foles in for a better outing and fits as an exceptional cheap option this Sunday.
Love me getting his name right. Please welcome back Steve Buchanan and Garion Thorn. Hey guys, we were just talking about Tim Hortons. Garion, do you like Tim Hortons? You're Canadian.
Like, how much time you spend there a week?
Well, I don't drink coffee, so I'm probably the wrong person.
Wow, what is wrong with you?
Oh my God!
It all makes sense.
Say it again.
I don't drink coffee. I will say, though, Tim Hortons in Canada are about as prevalent as Dunkin' Donuts in Boston, so it's hard not to spend at least 15 minutes a day inside.
It's funny,
that
we've got Tim Hortons against Dunkin' Donuts on our screen.
That actually brings up our next point. Steve, chase or fade, Dunkin' Donuts is better than Starbucks.
I'm going to fade both of that, and I actually wish there was more Krispy Kremes around.
Oh, dude.
Okay.
When the red light's on, you pop it in there. What's great is when they're super hot, you can just ball them up into a little dough ball and just pop them in your mouth. Anyway, that's the fat kid in me. Time to put up your buke, Steve. You know the drill. Give us 3 guys you like on tonight's slate along with their projected DK point totals. Your first pick, please.
I'm so distracted. I'm just thinking about Krispy Kreme.
I know, I am too.
Yeah, we should get some
donuts.
donuts.
I'm going to go with Kyle Hendricks for 19 DK fantasy points at 8,200. I mean, I mentioned I liked Hendricks earlier. I know Gary's not going to fight me on this because he's in the same boat. But, I mean, look, he's kept this Brewers club in check already this season. Averaged 15.6 DK fantasy points in those 3 starts. 23.7 average in his last 2. He got roughed up earlier this season, but I think that was way back in April. So, I mean, you got to toss that one out there. We don't need the negative stuff around here. I mean, Hendricks is not a big strikeout guy by any means. He averages has a 7.4 K9 on year, but he still somehow limits the damage, and he's still able to score over 20 DK fantasy points when he goes out there. It's actually pretty incredible when you think about a guy who strikes out less than a batter an inning is still able to come away with these 20-plus DK fantasy point performances. I feel like he's not going to be too taken too much either. You think about the Brewers lineup, that's a dangerous lineup you think about, but like I said, Hendricks has handled them before, so I got to like him tonight.
Yeah, I don't know how contrarian this is going to be with Garion because I'm looking at Kyle Hendricks under value here on the DraftKings Playbook. So is there anything you can add to all the knowledge Steve just dropped?
Yeah, I just think it's important to get a sense of what the pitching kind of lines up on this slate tonight. As I said, I don't really trust anyone under $8,000. I guess I could see a sprinkle of John Gray, considering, as you said, we have seen Coors go under quite a bit lately. Gray's been pretty good, but even his strikeout upside, he's only been hovering around a 20% strikeout rate since coming back from AAA. Then you've got, like, I don't know, Eric Skoglund against the White Sox, and he had his best start of his career, which is not a high bar to clear, mind you. He had 7 innings of 1-run ball against the White Sox back in April, but he's on a pitch count tonight, 60 to 70 pitches. The Athletics have inherited the opener thing from Tropicana and the Rays, so there's just no one to go to. I think you have to have Hendricks in your lineup tonight because, as Steve said, he's been fantastic since about July, and the way he's done it is the way he did it back in 2016 when he was a Cy Young candidate. There's just no hard contact allowed. This guy's at a 20.6% opponent hard contact rate across his last 6 starts.
All right, Steve, sell us on your second and final Buke of the night, please.
Yeah, it was going to be Matt Davidson, but I mean, the White Sox don't want to win tonight, so they kept him out of the lineup of what should have been a smash spot for him. But whatever, you know, it's not my job. Not made for me to judge. Let's talk about Matt Holliday, baby. Did you know he's back in the league? He's back in the league. 14 DK fantasy points tonight. I mean, talk about a cheap way to get some exposure to Coors Field. Matt Holliday is the way to do that. He's batting 5th against Patrick Corbin, and look, he's done pretty well so far. I mean, this is a guy who wasn't even signed to a major league team a couple months ago, and here he is hitting in the major leagues like it's old times, averaging 6 DK fantasy points in the 13 games he's been back. 2 home runs already. Look, we know the matchup isn't ideal. Going up against Patrick Corbin doesn't particularly get you all excited and make you feel all fuzzy. But for a starter, you're getting him at $3,400. He hits lefties well. He's always hit lefties well. And look, if you don't want to go really expensive at Coors, dude, Holliday, he's right there sitting for you to pick. Come on, baby, Holliday.
Yeah, you learn something new every day. Like today, I learned Matt Holliday is still in the league. Okay, so Garion, he's going up against Corbin, though. So how nervous are you with that matchup?
It's not a good matchup. I mean, that's the problem here. But 8-game slates kind of make you do some weird things. At the same time, as I mentioned, if I'm not spending less than $8,000 on either one of my starting pitchers tonight, I've got to save some money somewhere. And I don't like a lot of these value play outfielders tonight. But Matt Holliday at $3,400 in a premium lineup spot at Coors Field, there's a lot to like there until you get to the matchup. I mean, again, Corbin has faced 250 right-handed batters across his last 14 starts and has given up 1 home run. It is hard to hit Patrick Corbin, but that lineup positioning and that ballpark isn't going anywhere when Corbin gets pulled from this game after 6 innings in the 7th inning, and you hope that Matt Holliday can capitalize on that Diamondbacks bullpen because this is a good spot. It's just a bad matchup, but again, these are the things we have to do in a small slate.
Holiday.
Celebrate.
I don't know.
That's all I know.
I don't
too.
know any
and
more
I
of that
know
song.
that like old school Madonna.
Sorry, guys. Yeah.
She was the GOAT.
Yeah,
she was the absolute GOAT. But you know what? I'm definitely chasing that.
Speaking of goats, before we let you go, hit us with your slate-approved picks, please. Your goats of the night. Garion, who are you going with?
Oh man, I don't even know how to pull that up.
You can't. Just give us your slate approved.
Go with David Price.
Okay. What about you, Steve?
I mean, what did I even just witness?
Welcome, Steve.
Come on.
I mean, granted. I mean, we got 3 minutes left. We're stretching for time, but that's what you guys come up with.
You didn't like that
Dude,
shoulder
we're
shimmy?
off Holiday's last name. It's perfect.
You didn't like the shoulder shimmy?
I get it. I get it. I get it. Look, David Price is great. Yeah, I like David Price too. I mean, I think Matt Olson is great. He could be another one too. So Gary already said David Price, so I'm going to go with Matt Olson.
All right.
Also, Madonna, a very underrated actor, in my opinion. She was fantastic in Dick Tracy back in the day.
Wait, so you go with Dick Tracy?
Well, dude, hold on. And then League of Their Own. Like, I'm just saying, she was, Dick Tracy is another very underrated comic book movie.
Okay.
I'm just
all right, guys, thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
Well, they were into it.
We really like you guys.
All right, guys.
I like Blacktop. He was cool.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk to you tomorrow. So, Emerson, what did you learn?
I learned that Jeff Ulrich hates Adrian Peterson so much that in the break before the block, we're going to talk about Adrian Peterson. Jeff's internet just seems to not be working, but I know he purposely did that.
I learned that Steve and Garion apparently don't like a good shoulder shimmy, and they don't know a good shoulder shimmy when it hits them in the face.
Let's go!
Let's go! All right, guys, this has been The Sweat. I'm Jessie Coffield. He's Emerson Lotzia. He's shimmying out of the frame, and we'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. This has been The Sweat. Bye.